Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode. I want to cover something that I talked about last week. I want to do an addendum, an addition, an amendment, or whatever, talking about the whole fantasy thing and how it's kind of Hollywood is over. Hashtag Hollywood is over, bro. Look, I know a lot of people, they like that. That was something I found interesting, that people were responsive to that. Look, I'm not saying that fantasy can't ever be done and be on the big screen again, and it can't be like this big willy-nilly thing again. I'm not saying it can't be mainstream again. I'm not saying that. What I am saying is the era where it was mainstream and very profitable, and people wholesale went to see it and had faith in the content being good, that's kind of over. Like, the goodwill is kind of over. The fact that they milked it blind kind of milked it blind. The fact that they milked it blind kind of already tells you that it's kind of out the door before it even began. The Marvel stuff was milked, right? This is just a hyper version of that. And that's because we already had an era of like really great fantasy movies being from Hollywood in the 90s and the 80s, even the early 2000s with, Lord of the Rings. We had a lot of really good fantasies coming out. I mean, let's not forget that the funniest, most memorable stuff that was really cheap to make was like Hercules and freaking Xena. Like Xena, which I'll talk about that in the future in a different video. But my point is that was really inexpensive to make, and it was really well received by viewers, right? I think that era is where it's gonna head again. I think it's like a cycle where Hollywood picks up on it and they do a bunch of movies about it. They milk it blind. Then you have some other third wave that comes in that picks up on it again, that goes into some other venue. Last era it was video games. This era it's Netflix and streaming platforms, right? I think this time around it's going back underground. It's going right back into the underground, like I mentioned before. I think now is the era where fantasy is going back underground, and it's going to become a more of a niche thing. Like, look at the books that are coming out now that are becoming popular. They're not promoted by the big book companies. That's where the big movies come from, is mainly the big book companies. Very rarely will you see like a fantasy movie or a show or anything like that comes from like self-publishing. The only exceptions are things that are very, very niche, that have a very, very wide audience. I'll give you an example. The Twilight, the Shades, the 50 Shades of Grey. Those are very, very, very extreme examples of exceptions of the rule, right? Because it inverted, right? It actually found an audience of readers who don't normally read like fantasy. Like, this is a subsection of people who don't read fantasy, but it is a technical kind of fantasy, right? This is like a romantic fantasy. And as a result of that, it generated new revenue that no one has ever generated before en masse. Like, I mean, look at Danielle Steele. Danielle Steele was in the industry for like 30, 40 years. I mean, she's still writing books. Theoretically, some people say she's just ghostwriting. She's having ghostwriters, but that's an aside. She's been in the industry for 30, 40 years or whatever, and she's not generating the same income revenue-wise that like 50 Shades of Grey and Twilight, all those people were doing. And that's because she didn't invert, right? She had already a set audience that was already reading books and stuff like that. This is now the era of finding that audience, right? Because those girls found their audience. They found a place where they could just go and they say, okay, these are the people that I want. I'm going to get them to read this book and like it, and then we'll see what happens. And then it blew up. It exploded, right? That's the exception to that rule versus like finding an audience that's already preset, like predisposed to liking your stuff and building from there. That's the traditional route. These big companies, they can't do that anymore. They're now merging with one another because they're trying to compete with self-publishing. That's becoming very good at like being able to find audiences that are predisposed to self-publishing, so reading that stuff, right? Reading that type of material, liking that material, like fantasy. Like, for example, Brandon Sanderson, a lot of these influencers, they're using social media to do it too. So that they're using that method. They're joining the method of the social media, and then they're joining the other method of of being a creative entrepreneur, right? And merging the two. They're merging the two. So now you have one, right? So as a result of that, now you have people who are like, oh my God, I can reach out to this person. I can actually talk to this person. They're a real person. I feel invested in this author. I'm going to buy whatever deluxe edition that this person makes, whatever, right? And so now you have this new type of content, that new type of, I would even call it, that's the underground, right? This new type of underground content that's just, becoming its own type of mainstream, right? It's like forking. It's forking from the mainstream into this new stream, right? That's why I call it the underground. It's not really well known. Those who know. You have to follow their platform to really get more information. Maybe there's an advertisement here or there, but no big corporation is promoting it. No big corporation is supporting them or propping them up. Even if you're like an author who already had success in the mainstream, you can still generate income or revenue or sales through this method because you already have predisposed people who like you, who will promote you, who will read your stuff and try it out, and maybe if it's good, they'll promote it to someone else, that kind of thing. And so it's never going to quote unquote Hollywood level until you already have your stuff put together. And even then, it may never even happen. I mean, Brandon still has to make deals, and the deals are still in the works and in private. I'm not saying it's not going to happen. I'm saying that you don't even need it to happen, right? You don't even need them anymore. I think it's kind of over, right? You have all these creative directors, doing their own channels, their own content. The guy who made there's a whole underground movement with with that glitch kind of meme. What is it called? The what do you call it? The basement rooms. I can't remember what it's called. The back rooms. The back rooms. It's like this huge wave of creative content. You will just constant, unstoppable content that's just never ending. People are making full-blown movies out of that stuff. Okay, so this is the new era. I mean, really, it's the sky is the limit. You can make your own stuff. You can be the movement. You can be the change you want to see. There's other sections of the entire sphere that aren't even being talked about that much, like the Iron Age with the whole comic books being self-published and everything. And I think it all started really around the time of Comicsgate and everything. Which is a whole other segment. I can maybe talk about that in a different episode. But my point is, there's so many waves of this, so many phases and waves and sections of this thing happening, that is just the sky really is the limit. And it's all happening underground. It's all happening, not being promoted by big corporations, by big Hollywood and everything. And they're kind of irrelevant now. They're becoming irrelevant, So what do you guys think? You think Hollywood is done? You think the future is all about the underground? Do you think that it is a viable way to make content and consume content that is fantasy, books and stuff like that? What is a book that's underground that you like to read, that you're reading right now that you enjoy, or you have read that you enjoy? What is a show that's not really on streaming platforms that you're enjoying, maybe on YouTube or something? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching. Appreciate your time. Have a great day. Bye-bye.